All right, I think we're live. Just wait a couple of minutes or a minute for people to jump on. Chris, how are you, mate? There's a few shows happening tonight, so battling for ratings. But we'll start in about a minute. If you've got any questions, just leave them. And we'll get straight to it. There's a lot of shows happening tonight, so I think there's not going to be many people on at one hit. So, all right, we'll get to that now. Just quickly, that'll be the first thing I address, T, so don't worry. We'll get to that. There's a few people on now, so I'll start straight away. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining another episode of a Black and White United show live. I'm your host, Andreas. Thank you so much for tuning in. There's a few things that we'll get through tonight. The first one being, obviously, is our win against Port Adelaide. So we'll dissect that to an extent. Obviously, I've done my review video already on that one there. The next one we'll just talk about some standout players for that game. We'll look ahead to the Dogs game. And then we'll also talk about the ins and outs, because there's a few different types of variations of players and stuff that can happen over for Friday night's game. And also we'll probably just touch on all the other great things that happened in round one, which was a pretty good round being a Collingwood supporter. So just quickly, sorry, T's put a little thing on there. When are the hoodies available? I was going to wear it tonight, but it's a bit stuffy inside the house at the moment. So the hoodies will be available next week. I'm sorting out stuff with the actual link to go, the Shopify link, because I've already actually got one. So I'm getting stuff off that to put this on there. Otherwise, you're going to pay more fees and stuff like that if you have another one. So I don't want to do that. So we'll get that sorted out. But let's get straight to it. So Saturday night, where do we begin? 21-10, 136 to 6-9, 45. Like, who would have thought we would have won by that much? Now, I said last week that, and I said in my videos, I tipped us by roughly by about 24 points or so. I think the same actually for the Bulldogs game coming up. I reckon that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at around that 24 to 30 point win margin. That's me obviously being a bit optimistic. But Membry, 4 goals, 1. D-Mac, 3 goals, 2. Checkers, 3 goals. Elliott, 2 goals, 1. Brozzy, 2 goals. Hill, 2 goals. Nick, 1 goal, 1. Lipper, 1 goal. Schultz, Sully, and Sidebottom, 1 goal. Sidebottom with a BOG performance, pretty much 31 disposals. Houston looked unbelievable. Every contest that he was at, it was just silky smooth. It was just the finesse and the class that we have been screaming for to help the class that we already have. So his inclusion in the team is going to be something, as the year goes on, is just going to get better and better. Personally, myself, and I said this last week, I wasn't expecting the biggest game. I wasn't expecting him to light the house on fire, because it's his first game at his new club. You know, he's playing against his old team. You know, there's a bit of jitters and stuff like that. Maybe he might be a bit rusty his first game back. He wasn't match hardened from last week, and I was just a little bit iffy about it, but he proved me wrong. There was only one thing that Houston did wrong, and it cost us 1 goal. I'm not even going to talk about the holding the ball that was paid, because he had literally no opportunity. He grabbed the ball, took 1 step, bang, tackled, holding the ball, which was bullshit. But the one play he had coming out of the back line in the second quarter, he went to kick it to Nick Dacos on the lead on the wing, and a Port player came across his leg, and he couldn't get the ball high enough with the kick, as he had to stab it. The ball got intercepted on the wing. They took it forward and they scored a goal. That really wasn't his fault. You know, it was just the pressure that Port Adelaide put on. Big deal. Every other touch that he did during the game was just, wow, like screaming for this type of player to help out the team. Crisp also 26 disposals, like it was just everywhere. And Josh and Nick both got 26 on their own. Nick's disposal, Nick's class, his touch also was, and I personally, I don't know, I want to get people's opinions on this. I don't think Nick's playing at 100% still. He didn't cramp up, which was great, fine, whatever. But I still think he played. It was like he had a limit, and he couldn't get that next level. I don't know. I was just observing it, and it was like you're everywhere, you're doing everything right, but I feel like you could just go that little bit more, and that's obviously going to like blend in as the games go. Overall performance. Actually, before I get to the overall performance, there is one other player that I do want to mention. This was a standout performance from Ned Long. Now, I'm going to get to, when I get to the players' ins and outs, he's going to be obviously the one that I'm going to speak about, but 24 disposals, 70% disposal efficiency. And he set up Nick with that last handball for his goal. So, personally myself, I'm looking at his performance and I'm thinking to myself, how on earth are you going to take him out after that performance? You can't drop him, right? And I think they probably will, but I'll get to that after. You can't drop a player who's done that. And where does that leave a player like Ed Allen if he can't get back into the team straight away when you've got Ned Long coming in, not even as a sub, he's come in and he's dished up a really good performance like that. One of the best performances of the round by any player. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a good problem to have. But in the long run, you don't want to disturb the whole, vibe of the playing group and stuff like that, because Ed Allen now can't get a game and he should be playing. Just on that too, I think the reason why Ed Allen's not in is his defensive running capability. I'm worried about his defensive running. He might be at the moment just a one-way running player, and that's something that I'm a bit iffy about. And I think that might be the take of the actual club as well. But we'll see what happens. Overall performance against Port Adelaide. I mean, Houston was great. Nick was great. The whole team contributed in every possible way. I don't think there was a player on the day who you could turn around and say they didn't give it 100% or they played shit or whatever. Everything was in sync. And it was just a flawless performance. If there was one player maybe I would point out, maybe we could have got more of a run from Q. I feel like maybe we could have got a bit more of a run from Josh Dacos, but he played really well. Every time he got the ball, he did good. So they're good problems to have if your team's not going to be if your team's performing like that all the way around, then if you've got a couple of players who don't perform to that absolute elite high standard or don't meet your expectations, that's a good thing because it means everybody's contributing and you're not relying on that same player. So that's what you want to see. I did make another note. I want to see Bo McCreary take his game to the next level. I feel as if he only got 12 disposals and he laid 2 tackles, and I think he kicked it behind. If Bo can take his game to 18 disposals or push 20 disposals and kick 1 or 2 goals, then Bo goes on the Jordan De Goey level of the scope. And I don't think he's that far off either. And I'd love to hear people's opinions on that. The 2 tackles, I can probably give him a pass on because we had more of the ball, so we were running more with it. So we're obviously not going to be tackling and stuff like that as much. But I feel as if he may need to get off the half-forward flank and go into the midfield, but I don't think there's enough space there at the moment. I think he might have to just keep pushing up at the stoppages and playing as that extra 5th or 6th midfielder, potentially with like a Houston or a Josh Dacos impacting the play at the stoppages as well. The other part that I wanted to talk about was something that happened in the 3rd quarter. And this is the only worrying sign that I have. Out of the whole day, this was the only worrying thing, and it's a very easy fix. There was a part in the 3rd quarter where the ball was kicked into the forward line. McStay was running back, facing the ball, and he was about to take a mark. As he's done that, Jamie Elliott's running back, and he's gotten in his way. The good part about this play was the second the ball hit the ground, Schultz was coming straight in, and bang, he socketed it off and he scored his goal. Jamie Elliott has played the majority of his career at Collingwood as the second tall forward. He's not a tall forward. He's a small forward, half forward flanker. We need to let the Triple M's do their thing. We need to let the Triple M's go and take those marks. We need to let them lead, do whatever. If there's a hospital ball into the goal square, one of those guys are going to be there. If there's not, then he can go for it. But I feel as if the only thing that we have to adjust with this new look forward line, and it's only a new look because Membry's in there, but it changes the dynamic and it works, which is a good part. We just got to make sure that Jamie Elliott isn't getting in the way of them in that sense, and he's the first player on the ground ready to go, or he's the lead player to open up the forward line. I'd like to see people's thoughts if they saw that, blah, 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 and go from there. That's my take on the Port game. There's nothing really much to talk about. We'll get to the comments quickly. There's a few of you guys already that have jumped on. There's a lot of shows happening tonight too, so I'm really happy that there's a few people watching this one, so I do really appreciate it. So Jordan De Goey is back. We're going to get into the ins and outs soon. Shooter was so stiff to have that goal taken stolen by Bruzzy. Yeah, I think Houston was more stiff to get his goal taken away by the umpire, but at the same time too, I mean, if it's there, Bruzzy saw it, he went for it, and he kicked one right after, so that's fine. But Schultz got his goal with that play that I was just talking about. Peter G. The Triple M's are huge, 10 goals, 9 marks, inside forward 50 and 24 score involvements between them. If we can do that, when we play against teams like North Melbourne, we play against teams like Richmond, Carlton, their backline was a disgrace on Thursday night. If we play against teams like that and they're not 100% on and don't have their proper personnel in their defence, we will run over them with them three. Like, that's a given. Breakthrough performance for him, though. He looked fitter too. Found a bit of a belly on him last year sometimes, but he's ready for war this year. I think you're talking about Schultz. He looks a lot more fitter than what he did last year. But still, at the same time, last year he did all his stuff. I think we were just expecting the Port Adelaide Schultz, and he's coming to a new system, into a club that had a premiership hangover. You know, so if we had won more games, I guarantee no one would have said anything about Schultz. Like, nothing. And the whole Ginnivan thing would have been on par. No one would have cared. But Ginnivan was at a new club, his boyhood club. He wanted to leave. Of course, he's going to have a good season. Don't be surprised if Ginnivan has a shit season coming into the back half with Hawthorn. Chris said, how about the best play of the match where we got it from one end to the other in 16 seconds? Was that the one where Bruzzy hit it forward and Checkers scored that goal? That was good. We haven't done that in a long time, in a very, very long time. Who wins the Coventry this year? That's the Collingwood leading goal kicker award. I have no idea. I think Membry. I reckon Membry's a chance for the Coleman, but I haven't said that in public until now. And the difference being between like Membry, McStay, and Mychek is when Membry's having a set shot on goal, he's really reliable, right? The others are finding themselves more directly in front, kicking goals, where Membry's doing the leading, taking it on the half-forward flanks and stuff like that, and still popping it through. You know what I mean? So it gives defenses a headache, which is exactly what you want. I think Fly will play Will Hoskin Elliott this week. I'm going to get into that too. We'll come back to that shortly. We'll get to Glenn. Hey, how are you, mate? One of my OGs from the start who's followed this channel, so I'm glad you jumped on. Bo needs to move into the midfield. Can't be just a half-forward anymore. So you'll notice with Bo, he pushes into the stoppages all the time, and I think that's what you want to see. But I'm a bit more, I don't know. I would love to see him permanently in there, but with the goalie coming into the side, Tom Mitchell, when he's 100%, if he breaks back into the team, you sort of have to play in there. So, and just rotate through pretty much. My mate Nick's jumped on. He's a big Essendon supporter. He was actually best man at my wedding, so he's just jumping on probably for the numbers. Or he's got nothing to do. Peter, it will be interesting to see who we use as subs Friday night. I have a feeling it could be Pendles again. There's no issue with that, with Pendles being a sub. If they're going to nurture him and they're going to make sure that he is 100% going in, I think he wants the record. Let's not lie. I think Pendles wants the record more than anything now deep down. So I think they're just going to nurture him and manage him 100% to get him right to tackle the finals this year if we do qualify for finals, and obviously going into next year, and just let him do what he needs to do. All right, Sean. I've been saying this forever. Bo can easily be a Swan type. Fly just doesn't want to put more pressure on him for some weird reason. He needs to step up and has a ton of potential. And I think we will. When you see the likes of Sidey, Pendles, Tom Mitchell, when you see the likes of them retire, Bo's the next one. Bo and Ed Allen are the next two that are going to come in, and they're going to really support Nick Dacos, Tom McGuan, and stuff like that when all that sort of clicks. And that'll be potentially next year, year after the year after. The good thing with Allen, Long, Solid, etc., is it has to put pressure on to perform. Competition for spots is a great thing. Competition for spots wins flags. So I'm going to stop it there so we can get into the next part, and then I'll catch up with the comments. So let's go into Friday night. Pies and Footscray. It's the Dogs' 100th year anniversary game. Again, Collingwood been chosen for a marquee game. We are the AFL's bank. Any non-Collingwood supporters watching this, it's true. If a team's got a marquee game and they want to play it at home, we are the first team that they go to the AFL and say we want to play against them. So congratulations on making coin to the Dogs. How are the Dogs going to manage without the likes of Bontempelli, Jamari Ugle-Hagan, Cody Waitman, Adam Treloar? Who's the defender? The one that didn't take his injections from Carlton. I just had a mental blank. Like these type of players. You know what I mean? So if our forward line can turn around and give us a performance that they did against Port Adelaide, their backs aren't going to cope. Their forwards, though, with Norton and Darcy, are going to give us heaps of problems. I rate Darcy as a very, very strong forward. He is going to take pretty much everything that comes in the air. So Darcy Moore has to wear him like a glove. Nobody else can go on him. It has to be Darcy Moore. Darcy Moore needs to play on him. And then when the play breaks, he can get the ball and he can run off and he can kick it, or he can give it off to Houston, Quainer, or even Josh Dacos and push. But we're going to have a really big reliance on the small defenders, like the halfback defenders, to really put pressure on the delivery into the defensive 50 and make sure that it's not a clean one. And that goes on the mids as well. If we can stop with the Bulldogs, if we can stop Libba, because he's probably their main midfielder now with Bont out, if we can stop their midfield, Johanneson's got a hamstring as well. If we can stop their midfield as much as possible and win the clearances and win the one-on-ones the majority of the time, we're not going to win everything, but if we can do that, then it changes the whole dynamic of what their forwards' roles are, because you're going to have their forwards pushing up higher for them to give a helping hand out, which means our defense is going to have to push higher. And if they do try and get us on the rebound, their forwards aren't going to be there, and then we can follow them into the thing. I don't want our halfbacks pushing up too high, especially if we're getting on top of their midfield. And like the Houstons and the Dacoses and the Quainers and the Maynards, they want to push up forward as well. We're going to get caught out. There was a play against Port Adelaide in the first or the second quarter where we pushed up too high, and then you had Rioli and I think it was Finlayson, it might have been, on their own, standing in the forward 50. Somehow, and I mentioned this in my video, we were able to double back and go back as hard as possible and create the stoppage and draw it out for an out of bounds for a boundary throw-in. This time last year, against Sydney, the game that we unveiled the flag, they got us over the top so many times. And it happened to us so many times throughout last season. We just pushed up too high and we were caught out the back. Now, we're playing them at the G too. So this is different. The last few years, so 22, 23, and 24, we played them at Marvel. 22, we lost to them in the middle of the season. We started off and we're getting pumped in the first quarter. I think they got up to like a 30 or 40 point lead. And we came back, and I think we might have hit the front or broken even with them. And then they ended up rolling us. And then we lost to Richmond the week after. We lost to Richmond the week before. I can't remember. But then after that, we went on that 11-week winning spree. And we didn't lose a game until like later towards the end of the season. Now, in 23, we played against them at Marvel, and we dominated them the whole way through. And they had a full-strength team in. The team that played in that 23 game against the Dogs, we're now adding Perryman, Membry, and Houston into that team. There's no real difference to that side. So we should be able to absolutely smash them. Now, my mate Nick's messaging me. If you can, stop, because you're distracting me. Anyway, on top of that too, in 2021, that was the last time that we played the Dogs at the MCG. Last year against the Dogs at Marvel, we went toe-to-toe with them the whole way, but we ran out of legs. We had injuries, whatever it is. No excuses. They were better than us. We just weren't on. We did pretty good to keep up with them, but then they just overran us, and we were tired at the end of it. The game in 2021 at the MCG, I want people to remember this. That was Adam Trelaw's first game for the Western Bulldogs. Now, they had a total different team in to what they have now. They had Bont in. They had Bailey Smith. Trelaw's first game, they had Josh Dunkley playing for him as well. They only ended up beating us by 16 points that day. But throughout the whole game, they were just genuinely on top of us. We haven't played them at the G since. The sides are completely different. With the outs that they have, it's not a shoo-in, but we need to make sure that we win the midfield battle. It's not going to be one in the forward line. It's not going to be one in defence. It's the midfield. Because if we can beat them in the midfield and get the ball into the forward line, and we take off from where we left last week, they won't beat us. If we lose the midfield battle too much and we don't win all the centre clearances, I don't mind if we lose one here and there. It's going to happen. It's footy. It happens to even look at the Richmond Carlton game. It's a pure example, right? We're just going to make sure we can stop the quality of delivery into their forward line and make it extremely hard for someone like a Sam Darcy or an Aaron Norton to dominate us. If we can stop that, we win the game. That's it. That's the key to beating the Dogs. Now, I was going to get one of my mates to come on. He's a dog supporter, but he couldn't jump on tonight. But he did have a message that he wanted me to read out. So I'm going to read it. This was his thoughts on the game, because I actually asked him. I said, tell me, do you think, you're going to win, blah, 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 this is that. And he said to me, I've got to find it. Sorry, I should have had it prepared. I did screenshot it. Where is it? He said this to me. He goes, I'll make it pretty simple for you. The only reason I'd give the Dogs any sort of sniff is because it's a massive game for the club, and if they can play 4 quarters of high-intensity pressure footy, they're a chance. If they're anything less, they'll get absolutely rolled. The Dogs' midfield got pretty soundly beaten by the Kangaroos' midfield, and the Pies' midfield is 10 times better than theirs. Not to mention, the back line just keeps copying injuries, so any clean entries coming in will be pretty easy to score for the Pies. So that's coming from a pretty loyal and dedicated Bulldog supporter. So I have to see what happens there. We'll jump back into the comments. That's pretty much my take on the Dogs game. I don't really think there's too much more that we can sort of add to it, but I'm tipping the Pies by 30 points. I think 30 points is a really good margin to win by. I'm confident. I'm really happy with the way that we performed last week. But I'll just go into some of the comments now. Tell me what you guys think about this game. Give your predictions as well. Steve-O, Ours and Fox Footy tonight, Bruzzy said he could be open to a trade, not in them exact words, but he can read between the lines. If Bruzzy was to leave Collingwood, there'd be absolute riots. He's a sole spiritual leader of the club. I don't think the club will let someone like him go. But I was surprised we let Trelaw go. So, yeah, it is what it is. We were told Shooter come in to be the next Jamie Elliott. Does he look more like another bro currently? With the pressure acts and stuff like that, yes, but you're always going to choose Jamie Elliott over someone like a Lockie Schultz. But Schultz has a bit more strength, and he's a bit more of a bull, and he's sort of like that crazy how do I explain it? Anybody watch like Adam Sandler, the Water Boy? There's that one guy who, I'm not going to imitate him, but he switches. He's a nice guy. Then on the field he switches and he just charges, and he just like he breaks through all the linebackers and stuff like that, and he just tackles everyone. Schultz is like that. He's like a pit bull. He's like just an angry little dog that just wants the ball, and if he doesn't get the ball, he's just going to tackle and create pressure. Bo does that, but Bo's really handy outside forward 50 as well to lock the ball in. Schultz is more like Medhurst when he didn't have the ball, and he's tackling and he's trying to lock the ball in to allow the midfielders to come in, like the Dacosses and stuff, and even like on the weekend, the Ned Longs to come in and make it an immediate impact, which is awesome. Sean, do you think we need to manage our expectations? It seems GWS was our worst and Port was our best. If it's a 0-10 scale, if we can if it's a 0-10 scale, if we can consistently be on an 8, we'll have a great season. I think the GWS game, and I was going to talk about this later on, but looking at the way that they played against Melbourne, I thought we could beat GWS at the MCG, the way they played against Melbourne. I was watching that game and I was thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding me. How did this team beat us by 52 points and they're missing their stars? And they had Tom Green back in the team. And I'm just like, it was just an off day. I was just listening to my check on the Sunday Footy Show, and he was saying that they just didn't adjust well to the conditions. They didn't feel, right. And you could see that even when they went to Queensland a couple of weeks before, when they played the match simulation against Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Like, we had some good patches and stuff like that. I don't know, that was like a full-on glorified training session, but it was humid. I was in Queensland, the next day, and it was humid. Right? It was yuck. It was sticky. It was muggy. And it would have been the same in Sydney, especially with the change in weather, the rain, the sun, blah, blah, blah. The ground was a bit different and stuff. Now, there might not be excuses. In the end of the day, we just didn't adjust to the way that it was. We will know where we're at 100% after this Dogs game, because you're playing against a Melbourne-based team in Melbourne. Now, I know they play at Marvel most times and we play at the G, but we will know where we are on that scale after this game. And we can then take that in, because then after that, I'm pretty sure we have, is it a bye and then Carlton, or I can't remember, someone let me know, but, we've got those weeks off. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. Membry is kicking 50 plus. I hope so. I hope he does. If Membry kicks 50 plus, if Myercheck kicks in the 30s, if McStay gets in the 25 to 35, and you've got Bobby and Elliott, kicking 25, 30 amongst them, Schultz slams on another 20, we are going to be there deep in September. That's a lot of goals, because you got midfielders that are kicking goals, you got defenders that are kicking goals. Maynard's already dobbed too. Houston's going to kick a bag this year as well. It's a really good problem to have. It's not even a problem. It's just like, we just got to share the load pretty much. Tom Mitchell apparently has had a setback with an ankle soreness. Yes, he has ankle soreness on the other foot, not the one that he injured. So they're managing his loads this week, and then they're going to then push it back up. I don't know if it's going to set him back when he comes back or whatever, but I'm still aiming for Titch to try and make it back into the team around the Anzac Day game, maybe even just after. If it's after the Anzac Day game, you're going to have problems with him getting back into the team, getting match hardened, getting fitness up. He may even have to go back into the twos, which he's still probably too good to play in that level, but he's probably going to need to get that sort of match fitness back up. Because, you look at the way that we played against GWS, we weren't match hardened for that. And we played the week before against Richmond, right? But then you look at the way we played against Port, and you look like we're about to play in September, So that one game is going to be really, really huge, and I would prefer for Mitchell to have that before we get to a game like Anzac Day, because let's say Essendon are 1-5 or whatever it is leading into Anzac Day, they're going to be like frothing at the mouth to try and beat us. And that one player becomes 10 men that you're up against. So he needs to have some sort of match fitness before he can come back. But I think he's still aiming for around that week there. I think we only bring Titch back after the mid-season break. If it's after the mid-season break, I reckon that's too late. Liam Jones was their defender. Thanks, guys. I actually remember that later on. But, yeah. Moore can't play on Darcy. Who's going to play on Darcy then? We don't have Nathan Murphy. Who's going to play, I think? Reef? You're going to put Reef McGuinness on Sam Darcy? Reef didn't have a bad game against Port, but I would not be putting Reef McGuinness on Sam Darcy at all. I would be putting Darcy Moore on Sam Darcy. There's too many Darcys here that we're talking about. This is the big one. What about Cox? We'll get into the ins and outs now. This is the next point. We'll get into the ins and outs. Okay. So I'll take that off the screen for a sec. Jordan De Goey comes in. I think Lockie Sullivan comes out for Jordan De Goey. He takes that midfield role. I think Will Hoskin-Elliott being available, I would prefer to probably put him as an emergency. But he goes in, and hear me out, because I'm thinking devil's advocate here and the way that Collingwood does things. I think Ned Long comes out. I think Ned Long comes out and Hoskin-Elliott comes in. And then I think Sullivan goes out and Jordan De Goey. That'll be the straight swap. The other one, I don't want it to happen. I've just got this feeling it'll happen. I would prefer if Hosky was to come in, somebody else would come out. But who? Because everybody contributed so well against Port Adelaide. I didn't see one player that was like, nah, he can't play. You can't take Reef out of the team. He did an okay job. You know, he did much better than he did last week. Opening round. You can't take, you physically can't, if you want these players to develop in this new role, you can't take him out straight away. So where does Mason Cox come in? Mason Cox doesn't get picked this game. Unless between now and the captain's run, which will be on Thursday, I think, because we play Friday. Unless there is an injury, I don't see Mason Cox coming into this game. And unfortunately, I don't see him coming in until there is an injury. And everybody knows my love for Mason. I honestly think that he makes our team better. But I just don't see how he can fit in now with Membry and with what Membry's also doing. We need to bring in Frampton to play on monster forwards, or we send McStay or Checkers back. I see the point. I don't agree with it. I understand it though, but I don't think you can mess with the dynamic of the forward line. Checkers and McStay have to stay up forward. Frampton could be a good option, but I'm not sure how he played in the twos against the Buoyants. I'm not sure if he's ready to come in against a player like that. It's going to be interesting because Norton's a lot more versatile than what Darcy is. Darcy's just crash pack, takes a big mark. I mean, if they had Bugle Hagen playing, we'd be fucking screwed down back. We would be like, we'd have our half backs would be okay, but that full back line, Quainer, Moore, and Maynard, you know, who's going to stop these guys? The two back pockets are too small. So, but I don't think Frampton's ready to come in yet. I don't know. It's a good one, but we have 9 inclusions for this Friday night from the side that lost to the Dogs in round 18 last season. We lost that game by 18 points. Yeah, well, that's a good sign. We also have Perryman, let's just talk about Perryman for a second. I thought he wasn't as effective as he was in the GWS game, but I really liked the fact that he was just that link out of the chain when the ball was in the pack. He grabbed the ball, quickly go do his thing, and he goes unnoticed. And he did that a lot at GWS, but now that he's with us, you can sort of see it more often. Obviously, being his first game at the G, at home in front of the crowd and stuff like that, back in Melbourne, he had a lot of family there, which I know, that came, so he might have been a bit nervous or whatever, and then he got into it as the game went on. But I'm expecting Perryman to be easily in our top 5 best players against the Dogs. The Dogs barely beat North. They They weren't great. We should win comfortably. Glenn, I've got us by 30 points against the Dogs. McStay has gone down back. He's basically our Leroy Brown type, where he plays everywhere. Oh, mate, if we could, has the game gone past the Lee Brown role? Has it though? Is the game too quick now for that big crash pack ruckman swingman type of player? We've tried to. I mean, we tried to get Ben Hudson, we tried to get Jesse White, we tried to get all these players to create to do that role over time. And it never happened. McStay could be that person, and McStay's backup rucking to Darcy Cameron is keeping Cox out of the side. So, yeah, not much I can say about that. Okay, Peter. Here he goes. This Friday night, we bring Membry, McStay, Mycheck, Houston, Perryman, Elliott, Pendles, and McGuinness into the side that last played the Dogs. Fair. Better chance of me growing hair than Bruzzy leaving. I reckon we're about the same. How's the light bulb beaming on the head here? It's just fucking shocking. Anyway, Bozza, what have you got for me, mate? According to midweek tackle, Braden Maynard is in no rush to sign a new deal. I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't trust half the shit that comes out of midweek tackle at the moment because there's not much news happening at the moment in regards to contract stuff. So I really don't see how he's going to leave the Pies just quietly. Thoughts on Leeds? If it gets to, say, 30 to 40 points, do we kick ahead or do we go back into our shell? That's a really good point because against Port Adelaide, I was sitting next to my mate Dan, and I said to him, I don't want us to switch off. And he said something along those words as well, like, are we going to kick away? Like, we need to kick away. And I said, we need to put a side away. We need to put a side away and stamp our authority because let's say if we went back into our shell against Port Adelaide and they slammed on 5-6 goals in the last quarter and that 91-point win became 65 points, all of a sudden it's like, we thought Collingwood were going to win by 100 points at one stage, and then they didn't. And then really it was only like a 10-goal win, when really we are miles above them. You know what I mean? So someone like the Dogs, if we were to do something similar, which I don't think is going to happen, because I do think even with their outs, I think they're a much better side than Port Adelaide. If we are to do the same to the Dogs as what we did to Port Adelaide or around something like that, this opens up a major can of worms for the competition, which is what we want. But yeah, I'm still I was a bit cautious in my thinking on the weekend because I didn't want them to get those bullshit junk time goals and to take away the amount of dominance that we had during the game. Also on that too, I know we give Jason Horne-Francis shit, but there was parts in the game where he had the ball. Like, we got on top of him pretty well, but I'm going to say it. He might be a mama's boy, but the kid's a gun. Like, he's a gun. The way that he was breaking through the packs and stuff, like especially in the first half, it looked like, wow, But that was pretty much the only shining light they had. Lukosius is the most overrated football player in the AFL. Like, yeah. Okay, so get the defibrillators out because we got here. Plastic said, Pies by 14, dead level at three-quarter time. After getting pumped in opening round and pumping aside in round one, I don't think I'm physically ready to meet somewhere in the middle and do a typical Collingwood win and come from behind or whatever it is. I can't do that. Can't do that. Although still, I'll take it. Peter, Pies by 10 points. I think the Dogs will be playing with a lot of spirit in this match. I think the Dogs are going to play with spirit in the first half. If they can match it with our intensity for like 3.5 quarters, respect with your injuries that you've got out. But I genuinely think that they'll come out all pumped up, fucking doggy, whatever it is they do. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. footy isn't a summer sport, it's a winter sport. I don't even know what the temperature is going to be on the weekends. If someone can look that up for Friday night, that'd be interesting, because I don't know about you guys, but I was sweating on Saturday from every pore in my body. It was the worst. I think I can comfortably say that was the warmest game of football that I've ever been to. I think the closest one I had, and take grand final day 2023 out because that was a day thing, I think the hottest night of football, I think, was the round 1 game against Geelong in 2023. That was a really warm game as well. So, all right, before I get to the rest of the comments, because there's a fair few, and we'll catch up. So, other stuff that happened in round 1. I don't usually talk about other sides, but I think this round 1 was just too good of a round not to talk about. Freo Pretenders, I had them in my top 4. That's definitely not going to happen, even if they start winning games at home. Geelong manhandled them. Hawthorn, a very scary team when they're playing good, consistent football. They've got an all-round balance, and they've got young kids that have got now 40, 50 games experience, where I think they're going to be very, very... They may not win the flag this year. They may get close. But in the next 3 years, I think if they keep on going with the trajectory they're on, I reckon they'll pinch one. And I wouldn't mind if, we ain't win one. But if they did, I'm okay with that, because they're coached well and they've got a really good system and they've got some good players. The other one, I know it's one game. In 3 or 4 years' time, Richmond are going to be back up there. Their kids took it to experienced, decent AFL footballers and made them look C-, or C grade footballers. Nick Haynes couldn't take a mark. Jacob Wiedering was the only thing that Carlton pretty much had that entire game. You're not going to win a premiership with Cripps in your midfield. If I was Carlton, hear me out. I know it's on a Carlton channel, but I've got to say it. And I'm going to jump on the tomorrow at some point. I'll probably jump on the Jumper Punch, which is a Carlton channel on YouTube. I was on there last week. I'm going to probably jump on there tomorrow and have a chat to the Carlton guys on there. It's actually a good show. I don't mind listening to other supporters' stuff. If I was a Carlton supporter, or if I was on the Carlton board right now, I would be looking to get rid of Cripps, send him to West Coast with a first rounder and a second rounder, get Harley Reid and a future second back in return, and build your side around him, bring him back to Victoria, and Cripps can go home to West Coast and finish off his career, his last 2-3 years, because they're not winning a flag with him. They cannot rely on him to win a flag. And, they might come out and beat us one of the games that we play them or whatever. I don't care. They're not going to win a flag anytime soon. They are so deluded in any sort of possible rational thinking that they have, that they are a semi-decent football team. They will crack under pressure. And I would say that, they'll beat the shit sides and stuff like that. They lost to a team who may only win 2 or 3 games this season. And credit to Richmond, because if they go in every game playing like that, which they won't because they're too young, there'll be imbalances in the team. But if they go out playing like that most of the year this year, they won't finish last. And in the next few years, they'll probably get more picks and stuff like that. And God knows what happens there. So it's a scary thought. So we'll think about that later. Other games in round 1, I tipped Sydney against Brisbane. Brisbane with all the injuries, and to come off a win like that, that was pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie. I thought Sydney were probably going to get them and run them off their feet, but Brisbane just hung on the whole time. So we'll see what happens. The North Bulldogs game was pretty boring until the last quarter. I thought North were a bit stiff. If North Melbourne can actually kick straight and take those last opportunities, they'd beat the Dogs, which then gives me a lot more confidence for this game coming up against them. If I was an Essendon supporter, thank God I'm not, but if I was an Essendon supporter, I wouldn't be too disheartened with the loss against Hawthorn. I actually think they played better than most people thought. Hawthorn are just a little bit better than Essendon at the moment, but I think they are not as bad as what people think. Look, they probably will finish in the bottom four, but I think they might pinch a win against a decent side here and there during the season just to give them some hope moving forward. But they're not making finals or anything like that anytime soon. But I wouldn't be too disheartened if I was an Essendon supporter with that performance. One of the most disappointing things if it was St Kilda. Like, I know Adelaide are decent, and I don't think it's a fair indication to rate Adelaide so high after playing them, but St Kilda are rubbish. They have no one. That they genuinely don't have anything that is, when you watch them play and you're like, oh my God, he's a gun. Like, they don't have the De Gaulys. They don't have the Nick Dacos types. They're going to splash out for LDU. They're going to splash out for TDK. That's fine. And if you get them, that's fine. But those players aren't going to come into your club and win your flag in the next 20 years. Like, it's just not going to happen. So we've got it pretty good, even with an aging list. A retirement village ran a team off their feet that, made a prelim final last year and that was supposed to be contending this year, which I don't think Port Adelaide will. I think they'll be mid-table at best. This is Eli, North Melbourne supporter. I expect Pies to win over the Dogs by 20 points at least. Our Roos midfield killed theirs. I expect your forward line to be converting and giving more pressure to Dogs' defence. Pies should win. I think so too. It's fair enough. Moore will play on Sam Darcy. I think he will as well. Any news on Johnson? I doubt he'll be on the list next year. I don't think so. I don't think he'll be there at all. Now, did you have another thing? Here we go. Opinion on this round zero crap. Same thing I said last week or the week before, whatever it was. Scrap it. And if you're going to keep it, Collingwood needs to actually grow a set of balls and turn around to the AFL like they did, or like Jeff Brown did at the time, and say, we're not going to be part of it. Like, stop making other clubs rich. Stop bringing in the money for other clubs. We may do whatever for marquee games and stuff like that for other teams, but what is the point? We get nothing out of it because most of the time they're our away games. Like, in every marquee game that we play, it's an away game. Like the Essendon and Anzac Day game, don't include. Big Freeze games, most of the time it's a Melbourne game, right? We play against every club that has a celebration. They always want to play against us. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. And then what do we get in return? So I'm obviously a gold AFL member, so this doesn't happen to me. But Legends members then against the Dogs for their celebration game lose their seats in the Ponsford stand. Then the Dogs get access to those seats. The Dogs then sell the seats 40% higher back to the club and then or to the AFL, and the AFL then releases those seats to those ticket holders that have those seats part of their membership, and they have to pay an extra money. So it's like, hang on a second, you can't sit there. Do you want it? Do you want it? Do you want it? No, you don't want it? Okay, sell it back to him. Like it was mine in the first place. Well, that's ridiculous. Like, again, we miss out. So we're going to play against the Dogs. It's going to be their celebration game. I will be very into. We had 63,000. We had 63,000 on a really hot Saturday night at the MCG against Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide don't travel to come to the G against us unless it's a final. They will not travel. You'll have a little tiny cheer squad. It's like you're playing against Gold Coast or GWS when they come here, right? 63,000 people came. I think you'd be lucky to get 75,000 for this game. Lucky to get 7. If it goes over and I'm wrong, fair enough, whatever, then I misread it. But I don't think anything like that will happen. You're not going to get 90,000 people there at a Dogs home game, even if it's against Collingwood. They can wish. Luke said, Will Hoskin-Elliott not an automatic selection now? He's not. And in our eyes, he's not. But I'm still of the belief that McRae loves him and he'll bring him in. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I just don't think Ned Long deserves to be dropped. But if Will Hoskin-Elliott is 110 fit and he's in form, you're still going to pick Hoskin Elliott over someone like Ned Long in the team, in the last bit of the team. You got a lot of blokes pushing for spots. You're going to have Markov when he's back from his calf, Ed Allen, Hoskin Elliott's going to be in that too, Ned Long, Sullivan. You're going to have these guys fighting for spots, and there's probably, if we've got a full team, there may not even be one spot to fight for. And then you've got someone like Billy Frampton and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a good problem to have, but this is the problem that wins flags. So, Chris has said, is Jeremy Howe still injured? Because maybe we can put Cox in for him. I think they just managed Jeremy Howe. I haven't heard anything about him missing. And they updated the injury list on the internet today, and there was nothing said about him. So I think he's fine. We need an inside player getting to the ground ball, as he was awesome in that. Long did that really well, but I agree this is a potential result. Yeah. Kev, good to have you back on. Thank you. We need to back up this performance against the Western Bulldogs. I think we will. I genuinely think we will back up the performance. I'm not expecting a 91-point win. I think the Dogs are a lot better than that. I do think, though, we will. I think we're probably going to be anywhere between 25 and 30 points. And if we're not and something happens, then whatever. But I'm picking us to have that. Darcy Cameron in the back line for a bit. I don't think so. I think he's a pretty decent ruckman. I wouldn't put him in the back line. When you win by 91 points, I don't mind him having a quiet one. He'll be ready and more fresh for the Dogs, most likely. Sherry Bullingham's on. Oh, speaking of which, thank you for everyone for the feedback for the Sherry Bullingham interview I did last week. That was, I'm not going to lie, I shat myself when I started. I was a bit nervous as it obviously started off, but as it went on, I felt a lot more comfortable and stuff like that. But he was so open. He was so down to earth. It was just amazing to get the insight from an AFL player, and obviously calling him a premiership player during that time, and then getting his opinion on things now. I'm definitely going to try and get more past players on as the season goes. I'll try and get one before the mid-season break, and then potentially one more towards the end of the season, depending on how we're going and stuff like that. So we'll see. There's a few that I've spoken to. There was a few that reached out, which was good. So we've got some sort of idea of what we're going to do. But also in the middle of the season, there'll be about a 3-week period where I won't be posting much because I'm going overseas for a few weeks. So I sort of want to do it before and after that. Michael Gary, Jordan De Goey as starting sub this Friday night. Yes or no? No way. No way. He was asked, McRae was asked something along those lines in his press conference. And he said that, no, he's 100% right. Where he could have played opening round. He could have played against Port Adelaide. And then he trained fully and he's 100% match fit, ready to go. So I think they've taken the long road with Geordie to make sure he's 100%. And they haven't rushed him in at all. And Geordie's put in a ton of work. Don't forget, he was in, before this bone bruising and shit, he was in Dubai training. You know, he looks leaner, stronger, quicker, you know. You beat Port Adelaide, who are a preliminary final team, by 91 points, and then you're going to inject Jordan De Goey into the team too against the weakened Western Bulldogs midfield. We're primed to make some damage here, but I don't want to sound like a deluded Carlton supporter heading into round one against Richmond. That's the last thing that you want to do. Yes. Do you think we will see Cox play for Collingwood soon? Unless there's an injury, no. And that burns me. Unless there's an injury, I don't think he's going to get back into it. He's not going to be picked. Which is, it's a sad thing, but I think when he plays for us, he makes us better. But there's just not enough room in the side at the moment. Having said that, though, if one of the tall forwards go down, you sort of have to bring him in. You've sort of got no choice in that sense. And just leave him up forward and then chop out the ruck with Darcy Cameron. But you could have McStay doing that, which then just leaves Cox at full forward, which that combination could kind of work as well. But you're not going to bring him in now with all those tools. I was like, yeah, you can play them all, Seeing the way that we played against Port, I think I was wrong, and you probably can't. And I don't see him getting in, which is sad because he makes Cameron a better player. Cameron is so important to us. I'm telling you. I know we're saying this because we're calling them supporters, but if you're an AFL fan and you love this game, surely you can see. I believe that Darcy Cameron is the best ruckman in the competition. I think he's got, just from what I've seen the first 2 games, because he was good against GWS and he was fantastic against Port Adelaide. I genuinely think he's better. He's gone past Gawn. Like, I know it's like, oh, Max Gorman. Yeah, but does Max Gawn have the same effect to Melbourne now, not in the past, now, than what Darcy Cameron has had for Collingwood since he's come to the club? Maybe I'm biased. Maybe that's wrong for me to say. I don't know. But I think he's the best one. Do you think Pendlebury will be the sub again this week? Yes, I do. It can't be Sidebottom because he's just played too good. I'm not going to get through all the comments, guys, because it already is 56 minutes and I need to be off in an hour for the hour mark. But I'll get to this one here from Chris Graham. When do you think Ed Allen will come back into the Collingwood team? So has Ned long gone past Ed Allen in selection? Has Lockie Sullivan gone past Ed Allen? If Will Hoskin-Elliott gets back into the team, has Will Hoskin-Elliott gone past Ed Allen? Regardless of what it is, you got to play Ed Allen, because if you give him a sour taste and you don't give him the right opportunity, you can't afford to have a player come to the club and say, I don't think I fit in this team. I want to go elsewhere. Like, that would be a killer. That would be like, shit, this guy's like going to be part of the future of the club. You can't lose him. But the way we are at the moment, I don't know. Hang on, I'll read this one here first from Sean. The benefits to having depth on a list, it means that we have 120% to go rather than a rushed one, 100%. It's an interesting one. You could make a case for Cameron, but he's definitely in the conversation. I just think now he's gone past. I think already in his first 2 games, he's gone past Sherry, he's gone past Gawn. I don't really see another ruckman in the competition taking it by storm at the moment. There's heaps of there's good ones out there, but like TDK doesn't even play in the ruck for the amount of time that Darcy Cameron does. They put him up forward, they put him down back. Yeah, what is he? He's just an all-round big man. That's great. But TDK plays better for Carlton when Pitney's playing, which I think they missed as well. So I'm pretty much going to wrap it up here soon, guys. It's been a really good chat. Do you think Sidebottom will be the sub for Collingwood later on in the year? I think so. I think at some point he'll get subbed. I think maybe for an interstate game or something like that, he'll probably get one. All right, this is the last one. If Fly is saying they had different roles and both Sullivan and Long are inside type, that means Allen is an outside type and Fly didn't want another, just going off by what he has said. I read the same thing into it too. But I also think that they're probably not 100%. And I said this earlier on in the live. I don't think they're 100% with Ed Allen's defensive side of the game. I think that's something they need to work on. And I'm happy to wait another 12 months for him to break in and stuff like that and go from there. Before I wrap it up, I will give you guys my tips for round 1 on who I think is going to win, lose, draw, forfeit, whatever. So I've got Hawthorn against Carlton by about 25 points. I think Carlton will obviously come back and they've got to show something. Pies over Bulldogs, Adelaide over Essendon, even though that's here, I still think they'll do it. I've gone Richmond over Port Adelaide as a sneaky. Like, I try and get one every week where it's like, oh, most people are going to go there, but this is the one where I think maybe if Richmond can lift off where they stopped against Carlton, I reckon they'll beat Port because Port were fucking useless against us. I've got Geelong will smash St Kilda. Same with Brisbane over West Coast. They'll beat them. Melbourne, North Melbourne is going to be a little bit closer than what everyone thinks, but I think Melbourne will still get over the top. And the other one that I'm really not sure about is the Fremantle and Sydney game, only because it's over in Western Australia. But I've tipped Sydney to win that. If Sydney don't win this game against Freo, Sydney won't make the finals this year. Mark my words. If Sydney lose this game to Freo, they will not make the finals this year. And I think we'll pump Sydney for gather round. I don't think I've got anything else left. The sides are going to be released tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. I think we've pretty much covered everything. It's been interesting. It's a lot better doing these lives when you obviously win a game. But yeah, it is what it is. Guys, I'm going to let you go. It's 9:30 now. It's going to be a big week of football coming up. I'm going to be on the Jumper Punch, the Carlton show, tomorrow. I'll make an appearance on there and just give him a bit of crap. Set the tone for the Carlton game coming up in a couple of weeks. Put my foot where my mouth is and see what happens. Thank you guys for tuning in. There'll be a preview video to the Bulldogs game, a proper one, in the next couple of days. But thank you guys so much for joining. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Call it as you see it. And as always, go the Pies.